Hi everyone, it's Michele Payn and I am coming at you from Indiana here. I am a speaker and an author who happens to have dairy cattle running around my front yard. And Build Up Dietitians invited me here today to visit with all of you about how RDNs and others in the dietetic community can better connect with agriculture and farms, as well as talking about my new book, Food Bullying, and exactly what food bullying is. So I'm delighted to have you. If you could let me know that you are here, that would be excellent. Then I can see who I'm talking with. And I'm very open to questions. I actually prefer to have a lot of questions so I know what direction to take this. And I'm trying to get a list of the attendees here. So basically today we are going to be talking about a few different items around farm and agriculture and food bullying. My social handles, before I forget, are MPayn Speaker across most of them. That's MPaynSpeaker. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram under that handle. You can also connect with me on my Cause Matters page, that is, on Facebook, and I have a YouTube video as well. My website is causematters.com. I welcome you to connect with me, and if you want to email me, you can certainly do that as well. So welcome everyone. I'm glad to see you're here. If you could make a comment, I would be thrilled because I can't see the list of attendees, and that way I would know. And there we go. Okay, there's Leah. Hi, good. I'm glad that I'm on. Part of my voice, I was just at the county fair showing cows last week with my daughter as part of her 4-H, and I lost my voice for about 3 days, which I didn't ever really tell people, but it's kind of back. I'm just a little squeaky, so I'll be drinking water. And speaking of dairy cattle, one of the things that I hope that you all are keeping an eye on are some of the crazy things that are going on with activists and the lack of ethics there, because there are few examples that show food bullying more strongly than those. And I'd be glad to talk with any of you about Fair Oaks and some of the things that have happened there if you want to message me or look at some of the articles that I've written. But I can tell you, after spending a week in the barn with cattle, that dairy farmers care immensely. We work really hard to take care of our animals, even when they drag us around at the end of halters sometime. And some of those messages are the things that I like to talk about with dietitians as part of the Table Talk training. And my Table Talk training is basically, it's a 12-hour intensive workshop that happens over 2 days. We have had them in, let's see, Indiana, New York, a couple in North Carolina, and one is scheduled in Michigan about a month from today. And we would be thrilled to have any of you join us. I know a number of you in the Build Up Dietitians community have actually attended those. And what it is basically a look at being able to connect farm and food and overcome some of the huge myths that are out there, such as animal welfare, hormones and GMOs and antibiotics and sustainability. Not that those items are myths in themselves, but really it's about how to have a more productive conversation around some of the issues, and specifically understanding how food is grown and why farmers do what we do on some of the things such as with chemicals, and why GMOs are used and are safe, and those sorts of things. So if you have any questions about that, I would be happy for you to join us. For those of you who have attended, I know there's a number of you that may be on here who have attended. Feel free to ask questions or provide your feedback, because it's an amazing experience when we have scientists and dietitians and farmers come together around a table and we can learn from each other's perspectives, because I've watched dietitians be able to help farmers understand what it is that you do every day in nutrition, because a lot of people don't understand it. And I know that many of you are sensitive about being called the food police, but Table Talk is a great way to not only learn, but to be able to join together with others around the community. And some of the things that we covered is, I actually have my little cards here, are food truths that are based on my last book, Food Truths from Farm to Table, such as genes are the coolest ingredient on your plate. Now, as a person who breeds Holsteins, I happen to believe that to be absolutely true. And we walk through a number of different examples and images that help illustrate why it is that genetics are an important part of food production. Food safety, I know that's a big one for many people. Food safety starts on the farm and ends in your kitchen, is the food truth around that. When you look across all of the food spectrum and you consider the food safety protocol that are in place, it's actually amazing. but most people don't understand that. And I know that you as dietitians play a critical role in that. So I'm going to pause, take a drink for my squeaky voice. And for everyone who's joined us, welcome. I'm Michele Payn. I'm here in Indiana, and I am recovering from the county fair, but I'm delighted to have you. And would you please ask questions, because that would make my job a whole lot easier. We're just talking about some of the food truths that are covered in Table Talk training and based on my last book. So one of them is that marketing on labels is confusing to consumers. I think that is a connecting point for everyone who is in agriculture or in dietetics. We all know that marketing is absolutely confusing consumers today, and the claims that are made on food packages unfortunately have not been closely regulated by the FDA, in some cases not at all, and it's really created a lot of confusion. So that general premise led to food bullying, which I have a proof copy here. Very excited. This book actually comes out on November 5th, but I am announcing here today for the first time that it is going to be available in August on Kindle and Nook, and the ebooks will be available. So watch for that announcement. I think we're actually going to be having a big sale on August 13th, and you can pick up your first copy of Food Bullying. I believe we're going to have about $1.99 on Kindle, so would love to have you have part of that. But really, when you get to marketing on food labels and why food bullying, a lot of people first ask, well, what is food bullying? At the end of the day, food bullying removes choice from somebody's hands. It removes choice from the consumer's hand because food becomes too expensive. It removes choice at the farmer's hands because they're no longer allowed to be able to farm as they best see fit. It also removes choice because of groupthink, guilt, and fear. And personally, I don't know about you, but I feel more than a little concerned that people fear their food today. So when you look at what food bullying is, there's actually many different levels, and I cover some different examples in there. I'm looking down at the book here so I can do it justice. I cover many different examples. For example, a grocery store worker chasing a mom around a grocery store up in North Dakota to get the marshmallow cereal out of the mom's hands because she thought that it was filled with poison. To a school teacher in Australia sending home a shaming note with a kindergartner because she had a lunch box that included homemade chocolate cake. And that created an opportunity for the teacher to shame the family on sending a note home with a frowny face and saying that was not a positive food choice. To bullying tactics like what have been done in Germany on a dairy farm where people basically attacked a Facebook page because they posted a video of some common practices that were done on the farm. So food bullying touches the globe, and it touches all sides of the plate. And essentially what it is taking a step back and looking at the psychology of why we're making the choices around food that we are. And there's some pretty interesting science that comes into play when you look at misinformation, because it's clearly proven in psychology that misinformation creates some major issues. And the two case studies that I used were actually vaccinations. And I think we all know the negative consequences of what happened with the misinformation. Even though the UK immediately retracted the study and immediately asked people to continue vaccinating their children, and the doctor later lost his license, we clearly know the ramifications of that misinformation. Another less serious one was Listerine. Apparently back in the day, Listerine used to advertise that they cured colds. And they were required to run some ads to correct that information. And those have not been successful because apparently, especially baby boomers, many people still believe that Listerine cures colds. So that's the type of misinformation that I've used as an example in food bullying to illustrate how people take that misinformation. So you translate that to food and you look at, for example, the all-natural claim. Well, what does all natural mean? I mean, my Cheetos are probably as all-natural as your all-natural eggs because it's not a defined label. It's not measurable and meaningful. And so what we do is we break down some of different labels around food and take a look at what is regulated and what's not, if that makes sense. So if you have any questions about food bullying, I would love to hear them, or about table talk. I'm basically just trying to give you a bit of an overview and think about the opportunity to connect with the folks that are raising the food. As a dietitian, you have a great responsibility to be able to provide science-based information to your clientele, whether you're clinical or whether you're in a store, whether you're in the hospital or whether you're out on the speaking circuit. That science-based information is absolutely critical. And connecting with agriculture is a huge part of that, because I think it's impossible to understand exactly how food is raised and the science behind food being raised if you're not talking with folks in agriculture. So my hope is that through thinking about things such as food bullying and through the training like Table Talk, that we'll be able to better bring together the agriculture and dietetic communities. So Leah asked, if dietitians want to visit a farm to learn more about farming, what would you advise? So there's a lot of different routes to go. Number one is I have a list of farm bloggers and agricultural bloggers on my website, which is causematters.com. And you are welcome to go there. It's under agricultural resources. I also strongly recommend that you connect with your state's Farm Bureau because they typically have a group of farmers that are willing to talk with folks and open up their farms. And the other thing is shoot me a message. I know farmers all over North America, and I'd be glad to connect you if you happen to be in an area where I know someone. So that's a great way. And Leah, I know you've been out on several farms, and several of the administrators of Build Up Dietitians have been on farm tours, and perhaps you can share what you've learned from those tours, because it's pretty cool to watch dietitians get on farms and see the overlap. Because, for example, one of the things that we do in the dairy business is we actually evaluate the cow's diet, her ration, on more points than human nutrition is evaluated on. And it's evaluated more frequently, oftentimes on a weekly basis, because dairy cattle are like Olympic athletes. So it's a neat opportunity to see the connection between your nutrition world and the agricultural nutrition world. So those would be some points that I would certainly consider. And then there are a number of farmers that are covered in both Food Truths from Farm to Table and Food Bullying. Most of them are identified by name, and they are more than happy to be available publicly. And you'll see farmers from beef producers to those that grow both organic and GMO crops, to cherry producers, to apple growers, to, of course, dairy people and the like. So I would suggest some of those means as a way to connect. And if you have any other questions about agriculture, please do let me know. I'm going to pause real quick here. And if you just joined us, I'm Michele Payn, and I am thrilled that you are joining us today over at Build Up Dietitians. We're talking about Table Talk training, which is an intensive 2-day workshop. The next one is a month from now in Michigan, and there is actually a discount for those of you that are connected with Build Up Dietitians. And we also have talked a little bit about some of the food truths, the most contentious issues that we cover as part of that training, as well as the new book that I have coming up that will be available in August, Food Bullying, on Kindle and ebook. So welcome, Stacy. Now it's showing me where people are joining, and what I'd like to do is know what questions do you all have. Christina, thank you for the feedback. What I'd like to know is what questions do you have about food bullying, because I've not refined all of my talking points, obviously. And I'm curious what people want to understand more about the book. Sorry, I was trying to do too many things and almost ended the video. And so when I stepped back and I looked at food bullying, it was a very interesting combination of psychology and neuroscience. I actually have a neuroscientist covered in here, and let me tell you, that one took me about 4 days to get it through my head, and then another week to do justice writing it, because I am not a neuroscientist. My training is in animal science and agricultural communications. I'm from a dairy farm. I've always worked in agriculture. I'm a farm girl, very proud of it. but I really believe in the need to connect your world and my world and bringing those people together. That's why I do these trainings, and that's why I write. And so this neuroscientist is down in Texas, and he actually did a study on how accepting we are of new technologies. Pardon me. And he used the fMRI to evaluate how our brains accepted information around technologies. And it was hormones, sustainability, antibiotics, and I think the fourth one was on animal welfare. And the brain actually processes information completely differently and in a different area of the brain when you are concerned about it. So sustainability wasn't considered a high-risk technology, so the brain was more accepting of that and processed that information. But antibiotics, it was not accepting of. And so it processed the information in a different area of the brain. To me, it's that type of science that I think we're going to have to employ on both the nutrition and the agricultural side of the plate to be able to have an understanding of how people can process this information. Because one of the things we talked about earlier was misinformation, and I used Listerine and vaccine as the two case studies, but studies actually also prove that if we don't replace the misinformation with accurate information, the brain's going to go back to misinformation, which is, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, why we continue to struggle with the vaccination concerns and with why people aren't able to understand why vaccination is actually a perfectly healthy and right thing to do, is because we continue to go back to the misinformation, even though it's been clearly disproven. So before I go off too far on that tangent, when I was writing Food Bullying, it was really an exercise in increasing my own intellect, because I learned a lot about psychology and neuroscience and employed that within the food world. So that's kind of a quick overview. And I have a question here. Do you have any tips for effective communication to combat food bullying? At times when I present the evidence in casual conversations, they don't believe me because, of course, they've done their own internet searches. And Dr. Google knows everything, right? That last one was meant in sarcasm, by the way, if you don't know me. So here's the bar, or here's the deal. We have to raise the bar on the conversation. In order to overcome food bullying, it's about growing a more effective conversation and being able to really elevate the food conversation. People have a right to their own opinion. They're going to select food for their family as they best see fit, just as we all do. And I think acknowledging that people have that right and that they have their own opinion and that they may make different choices than us has to be first in effective communications. And then it's about being able to take a look for standing up what's right. That was actually the final thought, the title of the final thoughts in this book. I believe in standing up for right. I believe in choice. And I believe that both of those things are fundamental to our food system. And so helping people understand the information that you know and your own personal experience without shoving it down their throat is pretty critical. They may not believe you today, but perhaps you're planting a seed for tomorrow. And that's one of the challenges that I think we all, particularly when we have issues that are very contentious and very emotional, that we have to just know that we're planting the seed and that someday that seed may grow to fruition. So that's the short answer, not terribly short, sorry, Christina. But the other one is the long answer, and I covered this in the back part of Food Bullying. I refer to knowing your own standards throughout the book, and that's knowing your health, ethical, environmental, and social standards around food. And sitting down and writing those out was actually very telling to me. For example, as far as a health standard, I believe that we have a responsibility to feed people around the world. I know not everyone shares that sentiment, but that is one of my standards that drives my viewpoint on achieving maximum productivity when it comes to producing food. Likewise, from an environmental standard, I believe in sustainability, but I also believe that sustainability has to do with having farms that are able to be sustainable for generations, and that means they need to be able to make money. So it's interesting going through your health, ethical, environmental, and social standards. It really helps you overcome bullying because it gives you a basis to be able to work from as you're making your food selections. So hopefully that helped a little bit. Are there any other questions that people would like to send in at this point? Christina, thank you for your question. It certainly helps to have that. The same to you, Leah. And I would hope that any of you that are dietitians would consider joining us in Michigan on, let's see, August 27th and August 28th for our Table Talk training. That is a 2-day training that's available to connect farm and food, and more importantly, you can actually submit it for continuing education credits, and it will allow you the opportunity to have perspective on the 25 food truths that covers some of the most contentious issues in food, nutrition, food science, farming, agriculture, and all of that. So any other questions while I'm waiting for those? As a last couple of questions here. Again, my social handle is Payn, P-A-Y-N, speaker, S-P-E-A-K-E-R. You can find me at Cause Matters. Well, it's Michele Payn, Cause Matters on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, YouTube, all of the good stuff. Love to connect with you there. Feel free to message me if you have any questions or if you would like to connect with farmers. And please know that the folks in agriculture are interested in learning from you as well, and that we are glad to try to share the science-based discussion and the responsibility to have that with all of you in this community. And I do want to make a last minute note. If you are the type of person who prays, or if you want to send up good wishes, we have a good friend in agriculture who is starting her fight with cancer today. And her name is Brooke Clay Taylor. If you could send her your good wishes, I think everyone appreciate that. She just had her first baby a week ago, and I think that tells you how difficult that journey is. So I did want to make a call out to Brooke. We're all thinking of you, praying for you. And if you're inclined to do that, please join me in that. And aside from that, that's all that I have. I don't see any other questions coming in. So thanks for joining me. Best wishes to you all. Connect with me online, and I'll look forward to continuing the conversation. See ya.